Hi! Welcome to the 8th and last of the installments in our dplyr or a Dance with Data module for the Robust Tools class. My apologies for the length of the last one. I wasn't really expecting that to go for 40 minutes. I would strongly suggest, if you are going to use it, break that one up into two. Anyway, I will probably re-record that at a later date. In the meantime, in order to wrap this up, because we actually don't have very much left to do, thankfully, what I'm going to do is just quickly go back over everything that I've said so far, just to remind you of all of the content that we've covered, and then show you one tiny little trick and give you some pointers to where you can go next after this. Okay, so the data that we've been using is the Small World of Words data. We loaded it from file. Now we can go back, that line that I showed at the beginning where I said, okay, I asked you to take on faith that I was mutating. Now you know what it is. So I was creating a new variable called ID, and I was just assigning it a row number. So it starts from 1 for the first row down to n, which is just the last value in the data frame. So it was creating this new variable ID. And we covered that in the class. So there was our data. We talked a little bit about how you could maybe automatically clean names with janitor. I talked a bit about how you can do manual renaming of names using the rename function in dplyr. Then we talked about filtering. So filtering is when you keep a subset of the rows. And so we used the filter function to pick out things that are where the keyword was woman, and the number of responses was greater than 1. We talked about arranging, and so we could sort things in a data frame in terms of particular ordering. So in this case, we're going to arrange it by associative strength, and we're going to arrange things in descending order. We talked about selection using the select function. So we just, let's select the queue, response, strength, and should have been the ID variable. We can select using negative values to drop things. And then we could introduce the mutate function, and that's used, after a little digression there, to add new variables to a data frame. So we can have multiple variables in a single mutate statement. We can use the bind rows function to concatenate multiple data frames or stick them on top of each other. So that was when we used bind rows to create the gender variable. I showed you, when I was doing that, some fancier things you can do with select and filter. We talked in the last section about pivoting, and that's when you take data that might appear in a wide format and then reshape it so that it appears in a long format. I showed you how to do that and a bunch of other little tricks about how to reorganize data and sort things. So I mentioned things like the replace nar function in there, and then we did some plotting of that to sort of have a look at the associates of different words in the English language. And we saw some hints there by looking at the data that maybe there's some gender bias in what things tend to be associated with man versus what tends to be associated with woman. And then in the exercise, I asked you to go and do the same thing but using the backwards associate data. And in the backwards associate data, that was words that produced woman as a response versus words that produced man as a response. And then we looked at the things that had some asymmetry there. And what you can see is that, honestly, this is pretty bad, actually. So let's have a look at the associates, the backwards associates, so words that produce man as the output. Macho, handy, super, Mr. Bloke, gingerbread, fellow hunk dude. These are positive words. They are mostly good things, and they're about... Excuse me, I've just got hair in my mouth. I'm really classy. Okay, I mean, you've got things like Tambourine Man. Okay, that's a song. Sexist is there, so there's something that goes the other way, that is a negative thing associated more with men than with women in the language. But for the most part, the things that are more associated with men, than women tend to be pretty positive words. Some of them are neutral things that you should expect to see associated there, like masculine and male. That's neither positive nor negative. Um, but overall, a lot of them actually have this positive association. Okay, let's go over the other side and have a look at the words that are more associated with women than with men. Lady is alright, feminist, I'm all in favour of feminist, so these are good things. Female is neutral. Now we have a whole series of words that are basically about reproductive function or about women's bodies. So you've got pregnant, vagina, down here, uterus, menopause, curves. Lesbian? We didn't see gays or homosexuals appearing for men. Feminine? Okay, that's neutral, because, if I was saying that masculine and feminine are both fine. Cougar? It's often used as a pejorative. Estrogen, curvy, ovary. There are a lot of words in the English language that produce woman as a response that are mostly about women's bodies, and there's no corresponding words that you see about male bodies, which is telling you something about the ways in which we think about men and women in our society. So that's a little bit disturbing, and I will point out kept woman is an interesting association to have in the language, not my favourite thing to notice. But now that I've got my little bit of politics out of the way, let's do one last little trick before letting you um, escape my class. Join. Okay. In the original data, we had a whole bunch of variables, and I dropped them out in order to create this gender variable, right? What I have kept, though, is this ID variable from the beginning. So this ID, which specifies the row number, is a way that I can map back from this new created dataset gender back to the original small world of words, that big variable that I loaded in the first place. And all I need to do is to say, okay, can we join these two things together using that ID variable? So what I'm going to do is say, okay, we take the gender variable, and then what we're going to do is grab all the other variables from small world of words and shove them back into this data frame, and we're going to use the ID variable to do that mapping. So we're mapping it or joining it by ID. And I'm not going to talk much about the differences between left joins, right joins, full joins, and there's some other joins in dplyr. That's a more advanced topic, but I want to highlight that the gender, we can pipe it to a left join and it'll restore all of those variables that I selected out originally. So that's nice. We don't lose the data. If you ever want to combine data sets back together, joins are your friend. And that's it. If you want to want some more information on this, in particular, like let's say you want to know more about joins, well, I have two particular suggestions. There are a whole lot of things on the internet that you can go look at. The R for Data Science book has a lot of great stuff on dplyr, and it's freely available online, and there you have the URL there, rfords.had.co.nz. Or you can go and look at the Stat545 resources, which is at stat545.com, and they have a lot of really great things on this subject as well. And with that, I will, at long last, shut up.